2.
Good evening. Today is June 2nd, 2020. We are the East Aurora School that as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, members of the public will not be permitted to attend the public hearing, and this special Board of Education meeting is being held via Google Meet. The public hearing and special Board of Education meeting can be viewed live stream this evening on our www.eastaurora.schools.org BoE MTG Live or via the link on our Wayne District webpage. The public hearing also will be recorded and transcribed at a later date. In addition, we asked that anybody who wanted to have a comment read during our normal visitor comment section of the meeting, that they could email that and have the comments read during visitors' comments. We did receive about 6 letters to the Board of Education. I'll be reading those later on during that portion of the meeting. If anybody else has an email or a comment that they want read during that time, please email it to boe@eak12.org. Obviously, that was said, we said prior to 6:45, but email that now if anybody wants a comment read during visitor comments. I'm going to call the public hearing to order and ask that everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Russ, we are on the presentation of the 2020-2021 school budget.
Mrs. Covert, a point of order. May I make a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing a matter relating to our negotiations with the East Aurora Faculty Association? And I would suggest that it will take no more than 10 minutes.
Can I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Moved by Dan Brunson, seconded by John Seghetti. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
Board of Education, in the normal emails that I send you, there's a different link solely for this purpose. So if you sign out of this room and go to that number 2 link, we can meet you over there, and then we'll come back to this room when that executive session's done.
All right. And again, just for folks that are on and listening, we don't expect this to last more than about 10 minutes, and we will be right back. So stay tuned.
2.
All right, thank you all. We are returning from executive session where we discussed matters related to the negotiations with our collective bargaining associations. And we are moving back on our agenda to the presentation of the 2020-21 proposed budget. Mr. Ross and Ms. George, you're up.
All right, we're gonna put the PowerPoint up, so just give us 2 seconds here. And we will. Okay, Mr. Russ, you should be good to go.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us this evening for the public hearing for the proposed 2020-2021 school district budget. And here's our agenda. We'll look at the budget development. We'll review projected revenues. We'll recap the 2021 proposed budget propositions. We'll look at per pupil expenditure comparisons, and then that will lead us to discussion. So here it is, the budget development process. You know, we've been using this as our guiding force. The values and vision of the district, again, are kind of the bedrock for our decision making. And that's really based around our top priorities. Number one being, of course, our students. So the considerations for the budget process, as I mentioned, we are completely and unwaveringly committed to serving the interests of our students. That's always in the forefront of our decision making as we go through this process. We are committed to exercising good care and judgment and managing the resources with which we are entrusted by the public. We are also committed to doing this openly in a fair and objective way and in a professional manner. We are also committed to constant improvement, future focused throughout this process. So here's the tax levy limit calculation. This is something that Mrs. George calculates each spring, and it's based on a variety of factors. And so this year, our tax levy is set at 5.07%, which is tax cap compliant. Again, you can see the pieces of the prior year's tax levies taken into consideration, the growth factor within the community, the pilots from prior years, capital exclusions, the allowable growth factor. So you can see there's a number of factors that are considered, and that calculation comes out to 5.7%. So the estimated tax rate, you can see here in Aurora, Oklahoma. These are based on equalization rates. We've talked about this in the past, and the value rate is at the bottom. So you can see it's a $1.78 increase, $1.57 increase in $14.16 in Elmo. And again, that's based on the equalization rates, which are approximately 32.5% in Aurora, 37% in Colden, and 4.1% in Elm. So here we are looking at the projected revenues. Our levy of between 1920 and 2021, there's an increase of $1,186,705. And a sales tax increase of $65,000. This is something that we're keeping a close eye on because of the current financial situation. But we're very confident that we should be able to hit that 2021. State aid and Medicaid, you can see there's about a $709,000 increase. That's related primarily to building aid. The vast majority of that is related to building aid. Reserves, or considering operating reserves, that would be to debt service, ERS and TRS, actually $361,000. And I think looking at appropriating $418,000, which actually is $450,000 less than last year, and that's due to the payment made on our payments. So if we look at the components of the district, makes up our entire budget. Salaries, you can see, are increasing by $645,000%. We're seeing fringe benefits going down slightly, just over $23,000. We do have some equipment increases. $55,000, and that's for the purchase of 2 trucks. That's actually not new money. It's just money that's reallocated within the buildings and grounds budget. So we're moving it from one area into another area to be able to make that purchase. Supplies are down by 33,000. Our contractual costs are down by 102,000. Look at BoCs, there's a considerable increase, and that's related primarily to special education programming as well as technology.
Brian,
Yes.
we're having some difficulties. It seems like you are going in and out for some of the board members. So I'm just going to ask our technology folks, Mr. Hirschfeld, to get on and tell us if he's experiencing that same problem on the live feed.
We are, and there's really not a lot we can do other than Brian speaking directly into the mic and maybe trying a different machine. It's an internet connectivity issue.
You know what? Let me try something else.
The other thing, Brian, you can do is you can dial into that number, and you can keep your video on, mute your video, but talk on your phone.
Yep. Give me 1 second. No.
And if you go back to that email I sent you, there's a phone number. So if you mute your laptop,
you know what? I'm just gonna click out of here and I'm gonna click in on a machine.
Okay. And just so we're all on the same page, just be aware, not be aware, but just for your knowledge, the chat is part of the public record. I know we were just talking about hearing Brian. For the public and for the board, know that is part of the transcription.
Okay, is this better?
Much better.
Okay,
Much better.
let's
Much
continue.
better, thank you.
Okay,
Do you want to go? You're good here, or where do you want to go?
what would you like me to do?
Well, I would go back a few slides,
Yeah.
Brian, because I think it started out fine and then it seemed like it was,
Go back. Let's go back one more. Let's see. Yeah, this is where the numbers start. So,
we finished with what the budget considerations are, and I think this is the meat of the presentation is here.
Sure. Yeah, so here it is, the tax levy limit calculation. Again, this is something our business official, Dwayne George, calculates each spring, and it's based on a variety of factors. And you can see those factors listed off to the left. For us, the tax levy limit is 5.07%, and that's what we're proposing with this budget, which is tax cap compliant. And so just looking at the estimated tax rates, you can see in Aurora, there's an increase of about $1.78. In Colden, it's about $1.57. And in Elma, it's $14.16. And so a lot of people wonder why the rate is about 4% for all of these municipalities. And then the full value rate is at the bottom because we use equalization rates in each of these areas. In Aurora, the equalization rate is about 32.5%. In Colden, it's about 37%. And in Elma, it's 4.1%. So that's because there haven't been reevals in a long time. So you use these equalization rates to figure out the tax rate. So projected revenues. So if we look at the categories for projected revenues, where are we going to get our money to support the budget? The majority for us, as always, comes from our local tax levy, and that's going up by $1,186,705. Again, we're projecting a small increase in sales tax, and again, this has been coming in very strongly for us in the past, but because of current financial conditions, we're making a much more conservative estimate for next year. Oh, wait, can you back up? I'm sorry. I took a sip of water, excuse me. So state aid and Medicaid, the majority of that $709,000 is related to building aid. There's very little general aid increase for us. at this particular time. And then the appropriated fund balance is going down by $450,000. We're estimating to appropriate $418,148 for the upcoming budget. So the components of the proposed budget. So where are we spending the money? And the categories are on the left. So we can see salaries are going up by about $645,000. You can see some decreases in the areas of fringe benefits, supplies, and in the contractual line. Equipment is going up slightly, but it's really not going up with new dollars. It's just dollars being reallocated within the buildings and grounds budget, moving monies from supplies and other areas to the equipment line, so we're able to purchase those trucks. You can see a pretty considerable increase in BoCs of about $656,000, and that is related primarily to special education programming and also technology. So what is included in this budget? Currently, we are waiting for the results of the budget vote and our aid calculation from the state. Okay, so this is a really different year than any other year that we've gone through the budget process, and part of that is obviously due to the current situation with the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are waiting for the governor to let us know what our aid will be for next year. He has indicated that there will be cuts made in May and June. We didn't receive any notice at all in May, so we're waiting for some notice in June. We're also waiting for our budget, which is on June 9th. So we're waiting for the results of the budget, and I'll talk to you about what happens if the budget doesn't pass in a later slide. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air. So at the bottom point says we're kind of at status quo, and that's why we're really not making any major decisions at this time, because we don't have the information for at least the next few weeks. And so along those lines, though, our top priorities, and I think many of you have seen the priority list that we've put together that we've been working on over the last several years in terms of restoration of positions and programs, reducing class size, and those types of things. So our top priority remains the hiring of an elementary teacher for Parkdale, as well as the middle school social worker. There's no new administrative positions in the 2020-21 budget. Now, we were anticipating possibly hiring a new administrator, and that has also been in our projections over the last several years. But we've decided that won't be possible for this year because of our current situation. This past year, we reinstated an assistant principal at the middle school, and I think there's some misinformation out there. I've actually received some phone calls from some of our constituents saying that there's some people speaking on Facebook about what's happening with the budget, and part of it is around administration. And so what I would say is I would ask anybody who has concerns about that to please call my office. You can get that information off our website, because I would be happy to speak to you about it. But we did reinstate the middle school, Parkdale Middle School assistant principal this year. Our director of health, PE, and athletics, Mr. Leibrock, was moved to that position, and that opened his position, which we ended up filling temporarily with a teacher on special assignment. So the teacher was moved into that position to help us run the athletics part of it, and he and Mr. Leibrock have worked on the PE and health thing over the last several months. And so we have not rehired for his position. So I just wanted to put that out there to make sure that people understand that as clearly as possible. And again, I really suggest that anyone who has questions to please contact my office, and I would be happy to explain the details to you. So the shifts budgeted appropriations from one category. So this budget kind of shifts the appropriations from one category to another. And that's what I was talking about, like in buildings and grounds truck purchase. What we're trying to do is we're trying to look at our money and see where it's best spent. And so we have some obligations, obviously, for the operations of the district, but primarily our focus is on programming, and that is for our students. And so primarily that is a focus on teaching positions, restoration of electives, keeping class size down. Those are our primary focuses as we move through this budget process. The reason that we can't make decisions on that at this time is because of all the uncertainty. We don't know what the cut will be from the state, and we don't know the results of our budget at this time. What happens, I've had this question asked to me on a number of occasions, so I thought I'd share what happens if the budget does not pass. We have to adopt a contingent budget. And so we will need to reduce the proposed budget by $1,144,140. And in general, that's equivalent to like 15 teaching positions. And will it be teaching positions? No, it won't be 15 teaching positions, but it will come out of personnel. Because that's where, for us, the money lies. It's in our salaries for our teachers, our aides, our administrators. That's where the money lies. And so, but just to try to, I guess, take that amount of money and understand what the impact would be. Of course, there would be teacher layoffs. There would probably be administrative support staff. And so all of that has a negative impact on the programming for our students, because we would have to reduce staff, therefore we reduce programs, and we reduce opportunities for the students. Also, yes.
I just wanted to pause there for a second, because in an ordinary year, and I see you're going to get to that in the next thing. In an ordinary year, when it's the normal budget vote, if a budget goes down, there's always an opportunity for a second vote to take place, and the board could present an additional or a revised budget or the same budget back up again for a public vote. But this year, there hasn't been a revote date established, and the expectation is if the budget goes down, a contingent budget necessarily is this year's budget numbers. We would not be able to increase the levy at all. And so when we say that there's a $1.1 million decrease, it's because we would be operating at the present year's dollars.
That's correct. Right. Exactly. That's exactly it. And so as it says in the next bullet, it says currently a revote date has not been established, because typically, like you said, normally we would have a revote date if a budget is voted down. Right now, there isn't a revote date. I would imagine that probably has to do with the fact that we had to send out more than 10,000 ballots, and the process around that has been very complicated and I'll be honest, very expensive. It's cost us many thousands of dollars to print all the necessary ballots, the envelopes, and those types of things. So it's been a really erroneous process and onerous process, excuse me. And so I don't know what the state is thinking. Could they come up with a revote date? It's possible, but right now at this time there isn't one. So if the budget vote does go down, then exactly that, we're not able to raise any additional dollars through the levy, which would be the $1.144 million. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
So here it is. I always like to show this slide just to show our expenditures per student. Again, similar districts across our area and across New York State. You can see for us, our cost for general education is about just over $8,000 per student. For students who have special needs, it's a little over $28,000. And you can see in similar schools, comparatively speaking, it's $15,400 and $41,372. And then for all New York schools districts, it's $13,370 and $32,280. And you can see, so our expenditures are considerably less than school districts across our state, especially when you take into consideration the performance and outcomes of our students. We're graduating some of the finest graduates in the state with many opportunities when they leave. And so I think we're really getting a real great bang for our buck. And so here's the recap of the budget. Our proposed budget is $38,171,727. Our current budget for that should be for 1920 is $36,331,854. An increase in the tentative budget is $1,839,873. The levy increase, as I mentioned earlier, which is tax cap compliant, is 5.07%, and the tax rate increase is just over 4%. Again, you can see below it's tax cap compliant. And we always look at an estimated approximate tax impact of a $100,000 true value home is about $58. So here's the proposition. This is what it looks like on the ballots. The ballots have been sent out and most families have received them last week. And so again, we'd say that it's tax cap compliant, and I think we've worked really hard to put together a budget that continues to support our students. It continues to stay focused on our goals of reducing class size K through 12, as well as providing additional offerings for our students. And what our hope is that if we get good news, not only on the passage of our budget, but also on the reductions from the state, that we're hoping that we'll be able to add a position at Parkdale to maintain that low class size, as well as a social worker for our middle school. So those would be our two top priorities. There are other priorities, obviously, that we're focused on, but at this time, I think those are the two that we find that are plausible, and we're really hopeful that we'll be able to make that happen. So that's about it. Is there any discussion?
Mary Beth, Ms. Cover, just as in previous times, that I would recommend anyone who wants to re-see a slide, we do that first because that's taking over the screen, and then any discussion from there.
Okay, so just in terms of the public hearing presentation, does anyone have any comments on the slide? Any questions for Brian or any comments on the slide presentation? All right. I'm finding my agenda.
Okay.
Bear with me.
That's okay. We'll bring the slide down and then any other, we can go from there. Okay.
It's not bringing my agenda up. Bear with me. I'm working off of two screens because I was able to get my report back up and working, and then it. All right. We're moving on now to the, if nobody had anything further, we can move on to visitors' comments. Any board member have an issue? All right. We did receive about 6 emails from the public for comments this evening. Brian, I'm going to read them. There are some that are a little lengthy, so please just bear with me. I'm going to go through them one by one. I've tried to group them so that we could put common things together as best we can. I received an email, our board received an email from Jared Little. And he writes, how can I, as a parent, get involved in this new normal task force that is mentioned in the Challenger newsletter by Mr. Russ? Is there a more updated technology plan? The one published online under the Technology Service Department from 2014 to 17 and is not current. Is the district spending on technology, staff, training, and software? Is it enough? It isn't clear in the budget. We should be spending more given digital is the future and EA is behind with the use of technology. What is in the new budget to provide training our students, parents, and teachers to accommodate for remote learning scenarios in the event this continues or happens again? No one was ready for this. We made the best of it, but we should all really be prepared for this again, or if it continues. Many business and colleges are already planning for remote working learning into 2021. We should be using this time to better prepare for this and should also make sure money is in the budget or could be allocated for this if needed. Move transportation budget to remote learning example. Does the school have a continuity plan? If so, where is it published and has it been updated to cover long-term remote learning scenarios? What lessons has the district learned from having to move to remote learning? Why aren't kids mandated to attend any remote classes during school hours, during the school week like other schools? Optional equals, I don't need to go for most students. A regular mandatory check-in with your teacher would do wonders, especially for students with late or missing assignments. What has been done to improve the student user experience with technology? Many kids and parents are frustrated with this. We don't have a voice. Lack of standards and consistent use of technology makes it difficult for students and parents to understand and follow. A few simple changes would make a big difference in improving overall student experience. Thank you, Jared Little. There's a lot in there, Brian, but I know let's start at least initially with the task force, because I think that a lot of the information around technology and what's going to happen moving forward and what's school going to look like in the fall is a work in progress, number one, and going to be addressed in large measure by the task force. So maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah. So we're preparing our task force, and we're going to be meeting with the group that was brought together and when we started this process in March. We started off with working with our grade level and department chairs and representation from special education, and of course the technology department and all of our administrators. So we're bringing that group together. This Friday is going to be our first meeting, and we're going to just discuss kind of a debrief on what we thought went well and what we thought needs to be improved upon. Now, of course, like you mentioned, this is kind of a work in progress. Will this be one meeting? Of course not. But we're hoping that this meeting on Friday will help us to get started. And what we're waiting on, and we're hoping to get very shortly, is actually the guidance from the governor. The governor is going to be providing us, at least as far as we understand, with guidance for reopening school in September. So until we actually have those guidelines, it makes it very difficult to put any hard plan in place. We were required to do continuity of learning plans that we had submitted to the state on 2 occasions, once in the beginning and in like the second phase of this learning process. And both of those plans were approved by the state. And so the specifics of what is in these questions, I would say, is something that I would have to sit down and talk to Mr. Little about specifically, because there's just a lot of nuance to it. No one situation at Parkdale, the middle school or high school, is the same. Children at all different levels have different needs, and so that learning model needs to be adjusted to meet those needs, whether they're a typical student, someone who needs extra assistance. So those are the types of things we're always working on and making adjustments to. And so I guess there's no one answer to a lot of these questions, but I would be happy to have a conversation with him about that.
You know what, Brian, and I'm going to forward, you're included on the email message, so that I know you received a copy of it. So I would just suggest that you reach out to Mr. Little. His phone number is on the email that we received, and perhaps because there's obviously an interest in joining that task force, or at least being, and as I understand it, you're probably going to have one large task force and then perhaps some subcommittees that address individual issues like technology or like instruction or different pieces of the components. And as we move forward, none of us know yet what's school going to look like in the fall. And I know that causes a lot of folks some anxiety, and it certainly causes our teachers and administrators and staff anxiety to not know what's going to happen in the next few months. But I assume that the task force will be looking at sort of alternative scenarios, right? Like are we complete remote learning, or are we a blended approach and a blended model, or something, where kids are back in school, in a traditional sense, somewhere in that range of possibilities. So I'm going to ask you to reach out and call Mr. Little, and hopefully then address some of those questions.
And you know what, I'll just add this as well, is that our BoCEs, Erie to Chautauqua, Cattaraugus BoCEs, Dave O'Rourke, our district superintendent, has held several meetings for the superintendents to begin that discussion of what it may look like. As you're saying, we're looking at a number of different models. Many are blended of some sort, based upon what has been shared with us so far from the state, which is quite limited. But we're going off of that. And he is also putting together a regional work group that will include administrators, teachers, support staff, to also have the discussions to add to our programs back in our home districts. So that's another piece that we're working on at this time.
Okay. The next letter is from Karen Stone, and it largely repeats some of the questions that Mr. Little had asked, but I'll read it nonetheless. Ms. Stone writes, where are my technology tax dollars going to ensure that East Aurora School District has remote learning consistent framework built with the Google Classrooms, real-time video, i.e. Google Meets as nothing else is approved, video advanced scheduling, and consistent structure for the start of the 2020 school year. The teachers, kids, and parents need remote learning training and more structure. Number 2, where is your most recent technology plan? The district website has the last updated plan from 2014 to 17. Again, number 3, I guess would be, if the kids can't return to school in the fall, will categories such as the transportation budget, school sports budget, classes like gym, art, music, home, and careers be cut and the budget adjusted, or will the teachers be required to create real-time video instruction with set days and times that the kids need to attend? Ultimately, East Aurora is very behind with technology and remote learning. School districts such as Williamsville were able to quickly get up and running with their online classrooms and real-time video as they have invested into technology over the years. Now is the time for East Aurora to revisit the technology budget and ensure that we have what is needed to train staff, kids, and parents to have successful start in the September. There is many real-time video options that can be purchased, such as Zoom, with a license to minimize security breaches, which will allow functionality that is needed for teachers to be successful. Let's start thinking ahead and focusing on what is needed now to get our district on track with remote learning for September. Myself and domestic partner have offered to help the school district. However, our solutions fall on deaf ears. We have extensive years of technology and real-time video experience working for a global company. I have experience in running major transformation programs and projects remotely using real-time video to implement new systems, processes, technology, and digital customer online journeys with a global company. We have people we work with on real-time video from all over the world. I have offered to help the district at no cost to build out remote learning framework, weigh out risks and controls to ultimately plan for what the staff, teachers, and students need. Parents that are trying to help and have experience with technology need a voice and a forum to attend that is school district approved to bring solutions forward. Sincerely, Karen Stone. Again, I think that's, so obviously as we look forward to the fall, this task force is gonna address lots of those issues, and I'm hoping that, perhaps the same as we suggested with Lister Little, that you can contact Ms. Stone and sort of navigate some of the answers to the questions that she's raised, but also, sort of see what insight they may be able to give and information in terms of that, helping out on that task force.
Yes. Just a few comments on this. The phys ed, art, music, home, and careers will continue to be part of our learning process, so those wouldn't be eliminated. And also, I hear about this, the live, real-time videos. What's the challenge in school districts is children of different age engage with technology in different ways. And so just say, like, we look at the challenges associated with doing real-time video is, for instance, children who may be in a class who attend daycare during the day. So they leave their home and they're not available from 8 to 4 o'clock. So they're out of their house when these real-time videos would be shown and directed by their teacher, because somebody who's the age of 6 doesn't have the capacity to engage in that independently. They need guidance from their parent in the home as the teacher is providing that instruction. And so what happens is those children come home, they eat dinner, and then they're online between 6 and 9 o'clock at night, when the teacher is then once again assisting them at that time when they're available. So that's just one example of numerous examples about how each child's circumstance is different. And while some school districts have required that their students follow that very structured period by period, typically that is in private schools, and most of those are high schools. So high school students are very different. They have a different capacity and ability to engage plan their time. But even for our high school students, we found that many of them are working as essential workers, and so they're required to attend while lessons are being given. So there's so many factors that influence what she is speaking of, and I would be happy to sit down and talk to her about that in greater detail.
And I would imagine as we get, well, a couple, you did say that those classes like gym, art, music, home and careers would not be cut, and that's because those are mandated classes.
Well, some of them are mandated,
To some-
also just part of our belief that a well-rounded education is critically important. It's just not about English, math, social studies, and science. The reason that we produce such quality graduates is because they have all of these various opportunities. And so the reason they're accepted to the best colleges in our country is because they're coming out with a very well-rounded education. And so those are as important as any other class.
And we were able in the last, 12 weeks to have those classes continue even remotely as we've had.
Yeah, I've met with each group of teachers individually, and I have to say I'm really just blown away at the creativity and the types of lessons that they've provided, not only in those areas, but across the board in math, science, social studies, in art, and music. Are there challenges? Absolutely. We have issues related to supplies for our classes. So we're already talking about how do we, if we have to go to a remote learning model, how do we provide students with supplies at home so that the art teachers are able to do a greater variety of projects. Our high school art teachers send home large blocks of clay so our kids could continue to work on pottery. Now he's bringing that clay back and he's going to fire it for them. So there's all those types of things that are kind of a work in progress. And I have to say, I'm just really just overly impressed with their willingness to try new things, to try new technologies, and to do whatever it takes to make sure our students are engaged and ultimately successful.
Yeah, well, I think it's good that you're going to have a debriefing session, later this week, because I think you'll hear the positives and then you'll hear the challenges, and then you can adapt and adjust. And if there's more technology that's needed, then, come to the Board of Education and let us know, what's needed to make it work as we move forward.
Yep, for sure. Thank you.
All right. I also got an email from Nat Wayman. It says, hello, a question on the budget that I would like to better understand. Why the large increase in debt service from last year to this year? The 14% plus increase surprised me. I apologize in advance if you explained this earlier and I missed it. Thanks, Nat Wayman.
Joanne, do you want to address that?
Sure. That has to do with our capital project that was approved. Was it in 2017?
Mm-hmm.
Or 2016, 2017, the $23.5 million capital project was approved. And throughout the 2 years that we underwent the project, we borrowed only the amount of money that we needed for that phase of the project. And now that the project is completed, we borrowed the whole amount of money, which is the increase in the debt service.
Thanks, Joanne. We also got an email from Crystal Murtha. She said, Dear Board of Education, I'm writing to you regarding my concerns with the class size in the 4th grade classes for the 2021 school year. It was stated in the board meeting last month that the previously approved addition of a teacher in 4th grade at Parkdale had now been cut out of the budget due to funding, resulting in 27 to 29 students per classroom for this upcoming school year. This high of a class size is not ideal nor acceptable in a district in a normal year, and especially not in a year when students are returning to school, maybe after being taught remotely for the last 14 weeks of classes. I'm sure you are aware that there have been multiple research studies completed that have proven time and again that class size hugely impacts student achievement, especially during the elementary years. Not only is student achievement affected, but overall culture and success of the district as a whole is impacted by the effects class size has. Please do not let our children miss out on a complete year of appropriate education due to the district not spending money on enough educators to meet their needs. Our children need the attention that a small class size provides more than ever. How can you, as the East Aurora Union Free School District Board of Education assure us that every dollar that can possibly be spent on teachers is being spent on teachers. There was mention last month of manipulation of numbers and items listed to ensure that the numbers all came out appropriately, but somehow that resulted in a teaching position being eliminated. Why was that the thing to be eliminated? I think it needs to be thought about more deeply. What else could be eliminated that does not directly affect every single day impact our students? Those are the things that should be removed first, not the educators. When you remove an educator and increase a class size, you not only remove a teacher, but a parent, a counselor, a friend, a confidant, a nurse, an educator, and increase a class size. I'm sorry, a therapist, etc. Teachers wear many hats and proudly, but with large class size, teachers are no longer able to make those connections with their students. Please consider other ways to decrease spending to ensure our class sizes do not go this high. Thank you for your time and for looking into this matter further. So one thing I just want to say that the entire Board of Education is concerned about class sizes, Brian, and I know that we talked about that last time and at the budget, and although we didn't specifically allocate the money for the teacher, I know many board members said I'm only approving this budget with the expectation that class sizes would be, that there was money in the budget to allow for that addition of a teacher at 4th grade. We're obviously in a different time this year. We say we're unprecedented because we are anticipating that we're going to get cuts from the governor. We thought we would have some in May and we would have additional ones over the summer. We've talked a little bit about that at our last budget meetings. But can you want to speak to Ms. Murtha's?
Yeah, now it's actually not an elimination. I want to just clarify that. We're actually adding a teacher. And so, like I mentioned, the budget is fairly status quo. So we're not eliminating any of the teaching positions, but what we're seeing, and we don't actually know this quite yet, but we're anticipating that we're going to have a larger kindergarten. So we need it. So what that means is we need an extra section of kindergarten, but it doesn't necessarily mean it would be kindergarten. It could be placed, well, we'll have an extra section of kindergarten, and then how does it impact the other grades? So we need another teacher, basically speaking. And so right now, we don't know if that kindergarten class will come in as high as expected. That's one thing that we'll need to wait on until actually it happens in the summer after the whole budget process and all the registrations are complete. Most of the registrations happen in the spring, but we have a number of families that register in the summer as well. And so, so we would add that in response to that. So it's not an elimination of a position. I just want to clarify that. But the stabilization of class size is like a top priority for the board and the administrators as well. And what we're hoping to do is our goal, and we've talked about this in the past, is to have six consistent sections at each grade level at Parkdale. And therefore, it would stabilize the movement of teachers so that they could spend more year at a particular grade level, and also give us what we see based on our enrollment projections as a very stable class size over that entire period from K to 4th grade. And so ultimately that's where we're going to go, and that's our top priority. And that's why here's the situation we're dealing with. The governor has said that our cut to our aid could be in the area of 20%. If that happens, it would be a $1.6 million loss to the district. Now, is he going to do that? I don't know. But that's what he has been talking about. So that's why we're not moving forward with these positions until we understand what that looks like. And as soon as we have that information about our own budget, when we see the results of our own budget, and we talked about that, that would be about a little bit more than $1.1 million if it doesn't pass. And then if the governor does indeed reduce us by 20%, we would be talking about something completely differently. We would not only not be able to hire this person, we would be laying off people across the district in every area of the district. And so because we don't know that, it really makes it very difficult. And I agree with Ms. Murtha 150%. The idea of keeping class sizes low, and she's correct, there's lots of research that supports low class sizes. especially for primary grades. It really shows benefit along the way. And we have tried to stick through that. And again, I think we see the benefit for our students. There have been times where our class sizes had to increase due to financial conditions imposed upon us by the state. We've never been made right from that point, but we've improved our finances, and we've been able to restore teaching positions, reduce class size, and offer greater elective choices for our upperclassmen. And so I'm in agreement. And again, our first priority is to hire that person to maintain that low class size at Parkdale.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a board member that was, not in agreement with that approach. That the lower class sizes has been a priority for a number of years, and it has taken a lot of years to come back from the state aid cuts that we had several years ago with the gap elimination adjustment. We now were in a positive, position, and we were able to restore a lot of the cuts, not all, but a lot of the cuts that we had suffered as a result of that financial impact. Unfortunately, this year now we are anticipating another financial impact, so we just have to kind of pause. I hate to use that word given the governor's use of it, but we have to just pause and see what comes in the next few months.
Yeah.
There's an email also from Karen DeSantis, and she writes on page 52 of the proposed budget code A 2010.150-02 shows the curriculum director's salary at an increase of 103.4%, going from $128,861 to $262,103. Is this a typo? If not, please justify. Joanne, I think you could probably answer that.
Yes, that was when we were talking about reinstating administrators early in the process. And we decided not to do that, but I left the money in that placeholder to hire the teachers if we don't get the state aid cuts.
It's just a place for
Just a placeholder,
monies.
just because of a timing issue with getting everything done.
Right. And then she sent a second email. Another question is supervisor, the principals of the schools. If so, it shows the Parkdale and middle school principals getting approximately a 50% raise. Is this true? I think they would be happy to have heard about it.
I know that was the shifting of the AD into the assistant principal role. And that's where that 50% came from.
Right, and then it also says, why does the district curriculum conference budget go from $4,500 to $14,000?
That was based on actual expenditures over a 5-year period in the trending.
Okay. All right, that's it for visitors' comments this evening. We're moving on to board members' comments. Does anybody have any comments on the budget? We've been a work in progress, so we have been dealing with this for the last several months. So I don't want to, for anyone who's listening, I don't want to take there being no comments from the Board of Education to think that we haven't went over this budget quite a bit. Mr. Brunson, I see you unmuted.
Well, yes, I just wanted to say that I'm pleased that the budget has the flexibility built into it to be able to address all the issues that were raised on these letters that you've received tonight. There is a cushion in there that's adequate to be able to address the issue of class sizes and the other issues that were raised tonight, assuming that the state does not cut back our aid significantly and assuming that the budget passes. So I think it's very prudent that the district is pausing to not make final decisions on these issues until we know that the budget has passed and that the state is not going to significantly reduce the resources that we have available. But barring those two things happening, it seems to me that there is adequate flexibility to address those issues, and I think that this is an excellent budget.
Right, and I do want to add, there was one other priority on our list that wasn't mentioned in the letters this evening, and that was the social worker. And I do know that for a lot of us, that's, you know, that's obviously a priority. And Mr. Russ, I know it's yours, and I know it's your administrative team's priority as well. So all of those issues that are raised in these letters, Dan, you make an excellent point. Right now, we're sitting okay if everything passes, and if the governor doesn't hurt us too much with state aid cuts as a result of the pandemic. And, you know, we moving forward can be assured that, you know, next year will be a decent complement for staff and providing the services that our students need.
Yeah, Mary Beth, on that, we've added a school psychologist, maybe about 3 years ago. And then we added a social worker last year. We had another social worker on our list as one of our priorities. We weren't thinking it would be for this year, but after, just dealing with these circumstances, it's become now our second priority after the hiring of the teacher. And
right.
So, we realize, and that's what I'm saying is that that list of priorities ebbs and flows as we see the needs of our students changing. So we're trying to respond based on what our teachers are telling us and are happening in the classrooms and with our families. And so we try to respond to that to the best of our ability. And that's why the new middle school social worker is at the top of our list.
Right. All right. Does anyone have any other comment this evening? Judy, you were unmuted.
Yeah, I was just wondering, recently we had a number of resignations in special education. There is money there to replace these folks?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. The money is there to replace. One okay. thing we are doing, and some still as we move through the process in special ed right now, which is maybe a positive thing. We're seeing maybe a little bit of program reduction internally. We're not sure yet what it's going to exactly look like because the needs of the students again are changing. So the teachers are responding. There's maybe a few fewer students and a few students who have fewer needs. And so therefore, we're not exactly sure that all of those will be replaced. It's probably likely, but that is one area that we're always kind of watching and monitoring and seeing how we can do things differently, but always obviously keeping the students' needs first. And so that happens in all the areas. As the three principals are going through their schedules, they'll notice, I need less of this because of enrollment. Right now, our enrollment's a little bit on the rise at Parkdale. It's a little lower at the high school. So as Bill and Sal are working through the schedule, then we may say, okay, we need a few less sections of X, but nothing dramatic. It won't be anything significant, but we are planning to replace all of them. We've already started the interviews. We're through the second round and we're moving to move on. Yep.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Absolutely.
Anyone else this evening?
I'd just like to say a quick thank you to Brian, the administrators, and the finance committee for all your hard work. It's unprecedented challenges, and thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Brian, I have to say your administrative team put together a solid budget in an extraordinary difficult time. So thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to adjourn the public hearing. And now we are moving on to items requiring board action. So item A is the superintendent recommends that the Board of Education appoint Sally Davis, Chief Election Inspector, and Sue Kramer, Barbara Yan, Victoria Montague, Lori Smith, Jane Swain, Donna Bodecker, Shelley Brody, and Cheryl Sweet as election inspectors for the Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 budget vote and board member election. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Well, I didn't see who moved.
I think it was Judy.
It was me.
Okay, so I got a green line on Dan, but
Okay.
All right, so moved by Judy and seconded by Mr. Brunson. Discussion. So, Jackie, I just want to confirm that we're going to have a few election inspectors that are going to be there. We're not anticipating needing everybody, but we were told to appoint everybody and just in case, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
We don't anticipate using all 7 or 8.
And does anyone else have any questions for that?
Well, no, but just a comment. I'd like to thank Jackie and all the other people who have been working on this. It's an extraordinary effort to make such a radical change and at the same time ensure the safety and security of the election process. So, Jackie, we appreciate your work very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, you know it is. And if I can I was going to comment on that as well, Dan.
Can I just move this item and then we can comment on that? I wasn't cutting anybody off, but I want to get that action item moved and then we can get into the next meeting. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, carried 7-0. So the budget vote is next, is next Tuesday, the 9th. And Jackie, you have done a tremendous job. We got our mailings here at the house and are working to get those all submitted in time for the 9th. I remind people that are listening that ballots need to be received by the district by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 9th, in order for them to be counted. Anything received after that date will not be counted.
And just for clarification, Mary Beth, when we say 5 p.m. On the 9th, people are they allowed to bring it into, is there somewhere that they can drop it off? Okay, even with pandemic, all right.
Yep, I was just going to say that they can call to drop it off at any time at our number 687-2302, and they can find that on the website under my office for Sue Kramer. But I've been making an appointment and she will be happy to meet them. And they can also drop their ballots off on that day. Jackie, do you know what time they're starting in the morning?
I think that somebody's going to be sitting at a desk by the door by your office all day in case you have walk-ins.
So from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, somebody will be at a table accepting ballots at 430 Main Street.
Right.
And there will be a sign on the front door, on the front lawn, directing them to the front entrance, which is after the door that's on Main Street. So I wanted to clarify that as well. So people can contact our office to drop their ballots off during the week, and then it will be open all day from 9 to 5 on June 9th.
Correct.
And Jackie, I just want to commend you because the packets that we got were very clear and easy to understand, but I just want to remind folks that in addition to filling out the ballot and filling in the bubbles, that you need to put the ballot in the ballot envelope and sign and date your name, because the only way that ballot is going to be counted is if there's a signature on that envelope, and that envelope gets sealed and then placed in the return envelope with the mailing address back here to the district.
Correct.
But perhaps, Jackie, perhaps you could explain how the secret ballot is ensured by the process of how those envelopes are opened.
Sure. The outer envelope that Mary Beth spoke of, the business reply envelope, that will be opened, and then inside of that envelope is the person's signed absentee ballot envelope with the ballot in it. An inspector will open that envelope and leave the folded ballot, put that in the box, put that envelope with their name on it in another box. We are not allowed to open that folded ballot. That's a new law. And then, of course, before we take them to the Board of Elections to be tabulated, they will need to be unfolded. But at that point, the envelope it came in is in another box. And am I making sense?
Yes, that's perfect explanation. Thank you very much. I just wanted to be sure people knew that because they signed the envelope didn't mean that their ballot was no longer a secret ballot. It's still a secret ballot, and the inspectors are charged with maintaining that secrecy by separating the ballot from the envelope without looking at the ballot.
Correct.
Yeah.
They are not to be unfolded.
And we anticipate, just because of the speed with which the Erie County Board of Elections can count ballots, that we will have those back in time for our Wednesday evening board meeting on the 10th.
We hope so.
Okay, and obviously then the only purpose of the Wednesday board meeting on June 10th is to accept the budget votes and the Board of Education election of the board members. I do want to let the board know, though, that we were adding an additional executive session item for that evening. Ordinarily on those nights, we'd start late in the game of doing the superintendent's evaluation. And I did have an opportunity to talk to Mr. Russ about that. We had talked a little while ago because we had given him his evaluation so late in the game that maybe we wouldn't do one this year because we had done last year so late. But we are, my suggestion was maybe not doing the full throated evaluation like we did, but we could certainly go through and abbreviate it and take a look at last year's goals in light of the pandemic and the remote learning that we've done, and maybe just do a sort of an updated abbreviation. So my intent would be to have an executive session on Wednesday, June 10th for about an hour, starting at 6 o'clock, unless anybody is not available then.
Mary Beth, the only other thing that we would be doing on that day is the recognition of our top 10, our superintendents, our collection, and our retirees. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. And I apologize for that. I was thinking it was so, well, then my suggestion would be we keep it on the 10th because we have those people that are counting us having a board meeting on the 10th. And if for some reason the budget, the ballots are not counted in time by Erie County for that meeting, that we would have a special Board of Education meeting at whatever time on Thursday or Friday, depending on when those ballots get counted by Erie County for us to accept the results. Would folks be around and available to do a board meeting on Thursday or Friday that week if we need?
Yes.
I'm in town all week.
Can make it work.
Sure.
How about anybody who's not available? Wait. I didn't hear who that was. Nope.
Mary Beth, I'm looking at my calendar and it seems as though the meeting on the 10th is our only board meeting in June. So isn't there regular board business that would come before us? Personnel issues, financial reports, all the regular things that would appear on a normal board meeting?
Yeah, Dan, typically it's pretty light. But there could potentially be some things.
Yeah,
primarily
there's going to be some business that has to.
There should be. I wouldn't think there'll be.
I retract what I said. I have, yeah. Oh, because the July one is the reorg meeting already.
Yeah.
Right.
I retract what I said. We have more board business than just accepting the results of.
The primary thing is the recognition of the students and employees, and then there's usually a little bit of business that we do conduct on that meeting. Yeah, exactly.
That's the meeting that we always try to get done on time so that we can have our informal get together afterwards, which obviously is not going to happen this year.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll have an agenda planning, and if there's other items besides the recognitions and the accepting the budget vote, we'll do those other personnel items if we have to. And if there's other business to come before the board, we can do it on the 10th. But do plan on an executive session on the 10th then. Does anyone have anything else? I will say I did not, as part of the public hearing process, we don't have administrative comments. And I do normally go around the room and ask folks if they have a comment or anything so I did not do that this evening only because we just had a public hearing on it. But does any administrator want to say anything this evening before we get off?
Mary Beth, there's actually three super quick updates. Last time we were here, we spoke about the 1EA gear sale. That sale has been concluded and has raised $750 for the ROC, the Rural Outreach Center. So that check, once that comes in, the superintendent will head over, socially distancing himself, to deliver that. In addition, Parkdale is handing out those books we got from the teacher's desk. There are a number of those books left over, and those are going to be donated with the teacher's desk's permission to the early literacy program over at the ROC that I know, Dan, you've taken an interest and done a lot of work for. So we're gonna be building that library a little bit. So that's the first piece, and that's the good news. The second one, which is also good news, just to clarify something that was in the Buffalo News this weekend about internet access. We're not quite sure where they got their data from in terms of internet coverage, but I know technology was a question during the public hearing part. We currently do not have any kids and any teachers reporting that they do not have adequate internet access. We did poll them. There was a very small number, less than what you could count on one hand. We worked with those families individually to either get them free internet access or a hotspot during this time of remote learning. So while we were in the second tier in the Buffalo News' chart, they never called us, so I'm not sure exactly what they measured, but we're, as far as we know and what we had to certify to the state, we're at 100% saturation, both for teachers and for students / families. And those were two different certifications I needed to do. And then the third one, just so it's part of the public record, today's Joanne's birthday, so happy birthday, Joanne George. And that's it.
And it's John's birthday. Happy birthday, John.
Oh, yeah,
And it's John's birthday.
Birthday, Brian.
Joanne.
Happy birthday, both of
Pardon?
you.
Happy birthday. Any
Thank you, guys.
building principals, anything this evening? Nope.
Nope.
Nope. Mr. Brown, okay. All right, can I,
Mary Beth, can I just make two comments? I'm sorry, very quickly. Yeah, I wanted to thank Jackie and Sue for their coordination of the vote. We had to send out more than 10,000 ballots, and we got notice at the very last minute from the state that this was the requirement. So they had to work very, very quickly to get all the proper envelopes, the printing, the coordination, the packing, and get it out to our constituents in a timely fashion. So they had enough time to think about it and return it to us prior to June 9th. And I'm going to say it was a huge project. And as you can hear, some school districts still haven't sent out their ballots because of nothing that they've done, but the people that they've been working with were unable to fulfill their obligation. That didn't happen for us. And that's because Jackie and Sue took care of every single detail and just organized it perfectly. So I'm really grateful that it went as smoothly as it did. And we owe them a large debt of gratitude. And then I'd like to also just say that, Bill and I had a chance today, and I'd like to thank him for all of his work. He's really been killing himself preparing events for our students and especially our seniors. And so today we went out and we delivered some congratulatory packages to our winners of the Superintendent's Art Collection. So Ron Van Ostrand joined us, and we went to each of those students' houses and just gave them a small package just to say thank you for their hard work. And what Sue did is actually she created stationery, note cards and stationery out of their artwork. So she took their artwork and she put it on the stationery with their name on it. It's really just beautiful. She did an incredible job. And then also we put a small package together for our top 10 students, and Bill and I were able to get through 5 of those today, and then I had to get back to this meeting, so I had to call it quits. So we're going to get the other 5 either tomorrow or Thursday or Friday. But it was really great to see all of the kids.
Out, though, guys.
What?
The secret's out, though.
What's that? Yeah, the secret's out. Yes, exactly. So, but it was really nice to visit with the families, and they were all just very pleased because it's been a hard thing for our seniors, especially. And I told them we usually have a celebration at our meeting in June, and we're going to celebrate them like we talked about earlier. And they're hopefully going to attend remotely through this link. But it was a really great day. And like I said, I think they were all just thrilled that we were there and that we took some time to recognize them because they certainly deserve it. They've all worked really, really hard.
So Brian, perhaps we could find some place to display the artwork. I know it was that photographs of the work appear in the Challenger this month.
Yes,
but it would be really neat if we could hang them in the school windows or do something that so that the community could have an opportunity to see how beautiful they are.
Yeah, sure. And maybe even we could have the principals are going to speak about their student next. So maybe I don't know if we can get the artwork to the principal and they can just display it on the screen as well when they're speaking about it.
Sure. Whatever is appropriate. I just think and I'm sure they'll eventually be hung in the school and people can see them there. But maybe we can think about a very conspicuous place for them once school reopens so that everybody gets to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Ron talked about, we always have them framed and they're added to the collection. And of course, the student gets the original and we keep the copy. And so then we'll display it in the halls of the middle school, Parkdale, or the high school. And so Ron is working on that, but unfortunately he can't get them framed at this time.
Yeah.
And thanks Sue Forrest for the Challenger. It was a nice addition this go around.
Yeah, she did that as well. Yeah, really super talented.
And Mary Beth, just because you asked, we must see TV. We have about 24 people that have stuck with us tonight, so our ratings are increasing here.
Nielsen, ratings week.
Oh, do we know approximately how many people attended this meeting tonight?
Yes, about 24. We anywhere between 20 and 25. Our first meeting was about 10 to 12. Our second meeting was about 5 to 6. People come and go. We don't have a separate number, but the number fluctuated between 20 and 25-ish throughout the course of the evening.
Oh, thank you. And if you had just said that, I apologize. Your face froze for about a minute on my screen. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, about 24. So
I missed that.
We're picking up media here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marbredi. Any other business to come before the Board of Education this evening? Thank you all for coming. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Jessica. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Terry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Carried 7-0. Good night, everyone.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy voting.